All right. Once again, thanks for joining us today. We're excited to bring you this webinar, Virtual Events with Zoom and the Soapbox Engage Events app. This is the second time that we've given this webinar, and it's notable because there will be several new things that we can touch on in this webinar that we couldn't talk about in the last webinar, except only as upcoming new functionalities. So we're very excited to be presenting the latest and greatest to you for our integration between the Events app and Zoom. Just by way of introduction, my name is Tim Forbes. I'm the VP of Products and Marketing here at PicNet. PicNet is a company that is built to serve the nonprofit community. We've been in existence for the last 20 years, and we are the company behind Soapbox Engage. Soapbox Engage is a platform that supports nonprofits to basically raise more money and change the world. That sounds like a lofty goal, but that is why we get up in the morning, and that's why we show up for work. That's why Soapbox Engage was built. And the way it does that is through a series of apps that we have on the Soapbox Engage platform. In this webinar, we're going to be talking at length about one of the aspects of two of these apps. It's the Events app and our Classes app, and how those can integrate with Zoom. But I would be remiss if I did not at least give a nod to all of the other ways that the Soapbox Engage platform can help you connect with your constituents, with your supporters, so that you can catalyze your mission. All of these apps are available a la carte, or we have a full gosh, I'm totally blanking. The unlimited package for those who are interested in using all of the apps at a lower fee than a la carte. We are going, as I mentioned, to be diving in specifically to events and classes. So without any further ado, I'm going to be sharing my screen here for some views that we're going to be walking through. The beauty of this particular webinar is the stuff that we're going to be presenting about Zoom and the integration that we have is stuff that you all are familiar with, at least insofar as you use that functionality to get to the webinar, because the webinar that we have today and the registration process that you went through all integrates with Zoom in exactly the same way that you all could integrate your own sites through the Events app with Zoom. To walk through some of those specifics, what we have here is an example of an event with Soapbox that provides folks the opportunity to register. For this particular event, we have a pretty straightforward registration process. We have just the contact information up here at the top. We've kept it short and sweet. Within Soapbox and Soapbox Events, you're able to add in additional pre-canned questions for phone or organization or address, plus any custom field that you'd like to include in the contact information section. You also have an immense number of options for the ticketing of a given event. In this case, we've got just 2 different ticket types. And when we select one of those types, we have just the basics of what is needed to register here for what Zoom requires. Because in Zoom, in order to have a registration logged and a registrant created for a Zoom meeting or webinar, you need a name and an email address. So Soapbox is asking for name, email address. Just like the contact information section, you can add additional pre-canned questions by just turning them on or off. You can require additional questions. You can add your own custom fields to the ticket form. It's all fair game. In addition to that, as we see here, we've got the ability to add multiple tickets. Those individual tickets all create the same type of registrant in Zoom, because that's exactly what's happening here. By filling out this form, we'll just go ahead and toss in my name and a version of my email address. And by virtue of registering through this process, what is happening is Soapbox will go ahead and record that registration locally. Then if you have Salesforce integration enabled, it will save that registration to Salesforce. And all in the midst of that, while it's going on, it will also create a new registrant in Zoom, in the Zoom meeting or webinar that this particular event is associated with, so that you have not only the registration recorded in Soapbox, but also automatically added to Zoom. So we could go ahead and register here. I've tossed in my information. I'll go ahead and add an optional donation of $100. I'm feeling generous. I'll give my credit card information. And then when I click attend this event, we'll get to see some of the evidence of what happens with the Zoom integration. So because this is an event that, as we'll see in a few moments, we've connected this event with a Zoom meeting. What we see here on the registration form is the thank you confirmation page title that we've defined here. We see the text of the confirmation message that has some merge fields that we'll see in the back end when we get there, that show the name of the event, the date, the time, the particular details of the order in terms of the tickets that were purchased, and that optional donation that I gave. And then we have this Zoom section, which again is another merge field that allows for you to just drop in a listing of all of the different attendees and their personalized webinar meeting link. This click to join link is one that we get directly from Zoom. And it is unique to this particular individual. If we had registered, say, 5 folks for this webinar, we'd see all of those links here in the thank you message if we chose to go ahead and include that as a merge field. Now, this is the first way in which the registrant for this Soapbox event sees the details about how to join the event for the actual Zoom link that we see here that's in the thank you message. In addition to that, we have the thank you email that is sent by Soapbox. Here we have an example of that thank you email that uses our standard email template for the Events app. And within that standard email template, what we have here is your logo at the top that you can customize, and then a lot of information that's dynamically built by Soapbox and dropped in to this, this email. We see the title of the event, we see an image if you've included that as part of the event details. We see where and when this event is happening, and then a link to the event details, which is just the page that we were on when we saw this on the website. We have a customizable message that you can include here if you wish. And then once again, we've got those Zoom meeting details further down. So it's showing us the Zoom meeting ID, and then attendee 1, my information with my personalized join link. Again, if we had 2, 3, 10 attendees here, those would all be listed out. One thing that is important to note is that Soapbox, if you enable Zoom integration for a given event, Soapbox will require that you have not only a name and email address that each attendee is giving you, but that the email address that is given by a particular individual or for a particular individual is unique among all the tickets that somebody is registering for, because Zoom requires that email value to be unique. So if we had registered multiple people and we had attendees 1 through 10, let's say, each one of those would need to have a unique email address. We've got the order summary that we see here in terms of how many tickets, of which type, how much money, what the total ticket value was, what the additional donation was, and then details about the payment itself. So as I mentioned, this is our standard template. The standard template for email confirmations in Soapbox Engage automatically is going to have all this stuff in it. We do have another version of the email, which we're just calling our custom template, which is entirely, as you might have guessed from the name, customizable. You can drop in whatever text you wish, including merge fields that present basically all the information that we've got here in terms of the title of the event, the start time, the start date, the add to your calendar links, and then most germane to the topic today, you can also have a merge field that drops in the Zoom details. So that's a bit about the user experience, how we get to see the event registrants or meeting registrants that are added into Zoom that then have those personalized links that are included in either the thank you message that we saw on the site or the confirmation email that's sent. In addition to this email that Soapbox sends to the person registering for your event, you also can enable a confirmation email that is included within Zoom itself so that anyone who's been registered through this process will get that email directly from Zoom with that personalized link. And again, since you all registered for this event, and this event is using our Zoom integration, you probably already saw that with that separate email coming from Zoom. The other ways that the links can be shared with attendees or with the registrant is beyond just the email confirmation that's sent right when somebody registers. We also have in Soapbox scheduled emails that you can create. Again, as an example, all of you would have gotten the scheduled email that we had set to hit your inboxes 1 hour before this webinar, just as a reminder. And just like the merge fields that we talked about within the custom email template, you can include a merge field there if you wished for a scheduled email that includes all the Zoom personalized links in it. Here's a version of the Zoom generated email that I received that gives me that click here to join link that allows me to join the webinar. To get into some of the details just in the back end of how this works, it is not magic. It is straightforward coding that the good engineers at Soapbox Engage have written. And what it allows for is within the event manager in the Events app, you can create an unlimited number of events. And within that unlimited number of events, you can have an unlimited number of Zoom meetings that are attached to those events. Now, how do you do that? If we go ahead and look at the edit view of an existing event, it happens to be the one that we just registered for on the front end, the Giving Tuesday Virtual Gala. If we click Integration, and we open the Zoom section, we'll see how to enable integration for a given event and how to select an event within Zoom. So we can enable it just by choosing yes here. There is a global setting in the events configuration that allows you to enable Zoom integration for each and every event. That might be a bit excessive because in most instances, you're gonna probably want to deliberately choose to enable that integration, and you'll need to select the specific Zoom meeting or webinar. So oftentimes we advise folks to have the global configuration set to no and then just enable that on an event by event basis. Then we see here Zoom meeting / webinar. We've already selected a a meeting, a Zoom meeting called Giving Tuesday Virtual Gala. If we click select, we'll get to see, though, the functionality of how you go through the process. So what's happening here is Soapbox is reaching out to your Zoom account and getting the full list of both Zoom meetings and Zoom webinars. So Zoom meetings, that's the standard event type that Zoom has. Zoom also allows for a webinars add-on. The main difference between those two is that webinars allow for a lot more people to join. There are other differences too, but that's the biggest difference. So anybody who has Zoom has the ability to create Zoom meetings. Only those who have chosen to have the webinar add-on can create webinars. Soapbox can integrate with either one of those. The main things that need to be in place for Soapbox to be able to integrate with your Zoom account and your Zoom meetings and webinars are two things. One is you need to have at least the Zoom Pro account. That's the lowest priced account that is not free. So if you have the Pro account as the cheapest option, or any account type beyond that in Zoom, you can have Soapbox integrates with your Zoom account. The other thing that you need for a given meeting or webinar to integrate with Zoom and the Events app is you need to have that meeting or webinar set to require registration, because that's the whole point for the integration between the Events app and Zoom. We're creating registrants in Zoom. If you've got a Zoom meeting that just has a common link that everybody can use, you could still use that. All you would need, though, is to just include that common link as part of the registration confirmation page and confirmation email in an Events app event. You wouldn't need to actually enable the Zoom integration specifically. But if you are enabling Zoom integration, you're going to need registration required for meetings or webinars. If those two things are in place, at least a Zoom Pro account and then a required registration setting for a meeting or a webinar, you're all set. Your meeting or webinar should appear here in the list. We've broken those out into show me just the meetings or show me just the webinars, so you can toggle between those two. You can also choose to limit the list, filter the list by specific Zoom user. So this is something where the details in Zoom get a bit nuanced because only licensed users in Zoom can create webinars or meetings that require registration. So that'll be something you'll need to be aware of, that if you have a licensed user, only they can create webinars that webinars or meetings that are requiring registration. But we're going to show you all of the users that you have and then only show the meetings or webinars that require registration, just to help you make sure that you're selecting only meetings or webinars that will integrate properly with Soapbox. By default, we're just going to show you the upcoming webinars or meetings because we're assuming that you're not going to want to register folks for something that's already passed. But if for some reason you want to see everything regardless of date, you can go ahead and select that here. And then beyond that, you can just type in some text that you want to search on, and we'll filter this list for you. Now, let's say you are creating the event in Soapbox, but you have not created the webinar or the meeting in Zoom. Never fear. All you have to do is go ahead and click New here, and Soapbox will automatically pre-fill in the different fields based on the information that you've included in the event already. So it's just grabbing the event name. It's assuming it's a meeting because everybody has meetings, not everybody has webinars, but if it's a webinar, you could just change that. It's going to assume that the Zoom user is the user that is the owner of your Zoom account, but you can change that to any licensed user. So we're filtering based on whether or not the Zoom users are licensed or not. We only have one licensed user in our account, so that's why only one is showing here. Then Soapbox is going to automatically drop in the start dates, the start time as defined for the event, as well as the time zone. So chances are when you click New, you can just review the information here, click Create, and what will happen is Soapbox will create that meeting or webinar in Zoom. It will associate it with this event in Soapbox, and you'll be ready to get registrations through the Soapbox Events app that create registrants in Zoom. Now, some details about how this works or connects between Zoom and Soapbox and what this looks like on the Zoom side. If we log into our Zoom account and we go to upcoming meetings, we could do this with webinars if we wanted, but the Giving Tuesday Virtual Gala that we have is a meeting, not a webinar. And you can see that on our list here. If we open up the detail view for the Giving Tuesday Virtual Gala meeting, we can scroll down and see, hey, we've got 2 registrants. If we click View, there's actually 2 of me in here. This is the one that was just registered for today. So once again, this is the core functionality of what the integration entails, where you can register on the front end of your website for a given event in the Events app and have that automatically create the registrant here. Now, the way that you integrate Soapbox with your Zoom account, just as a first step, is that Zoom has a way to create what it calls an app. There are details about how to do this in the Soapbox Support Center, but basically it is an app of type JWT. You get some details within that app. You save those to the configuration in the Soapbox Engage Events app, and you're set to go ahead and create those registrations. You'll know that the credentials are correct because when you save the credentials, Soapbox will go ahead and grab the username of the account owner and display that in the configuration so that you can know that things are connecting properly and you can move forward with confidence that you'll be able to get registrations from folks. So that is an overview of the registration integration that we have between the Events app and Zoom. There are a number of those things that were just added recently that included support for Zoom webinars, includes support for multiple Zoom users. Also, we made an update that streamlines the information that you need to get from the Zoom app and to place into Soapbox, just to make that easier. Some other things that are on the horizon are the ability to go ahead and track attendance for your Zoom webinar in Soapbox and also in Salesforce so that we can get the data about who showed up and how long they attended the webinar and have visibility for that for you in Soapbox and Salesforce if you have Salesforce integration enabled for your Engage site and for your event specifically. That also gives me the opportunity to say that parts of the Zoom integration is that when you look into Soapbox and check out a given reservation for your events, you can see details for that Zoom integration in that record. So if we go here and check out my registration, scroll to the bottom, you get to see the Zoom meeting ID, the registration ID that's for my registrant, and then even down to the join URL so that you have access to that personalized join URL for that individual. All of these details are also saved to Salesforce. So they're recorded there, and that opens up a number of opportunities for you if you want to use that data, send that data directly from Salesforce to a given attendee for an upcoming webinar. That's at your disposal there in Salesforce. So what we'll be looking to do in the coming couple months is adding in to this view, or a view like it, the details about who showed up for your events and whether or not this particular person attended and for how long. Some other things to note about recent additions. We do now have support for Zoom integration for our Classes app. So originally, when the Zoom integration came out, it only worked with events and the traditional event registration process, which is exactly what we showed here, where you can fill out the registration information on a particular event registration form and submit that for just this one event. Within our Classes app, there's a different set of functionality where we have a shopping cart option so that you can actually add multiple classes at one time to a shopping cart order. You can process that in one fell swoop, whether it's for one class or 10 classes, and register in that way in mass. We now have support for Zoom for that registration option as well. So if folks are using our Classes app with the shopping cart, you can have each and every one of those attendees for each of those classes created as a registrant in Zoom for the Zoom webinar or meeting that's associated with that class. I hope that gives you a good sense of the integration that we have between the Events app and Zoom. I trust that this is something that is speaking very directly in a very timely fashion to the needs of your nonprofit as we're all trying to negotiate just the realities of the pandemic. If you have any further questions about any of the functionality that we've presented here, feel free to go ahead and submit a ticket to us at support.picnet.net. It is helpful to note that this particular functionality is available right now to anyone with our Events app. It's not an add-on. It's not a feature that you need to request to be turned on. It's there, and you can go ahead and start using it just whenever you want to if you have the Events app. If you don't have our Events app and you're interested in adding it, feel free to reach out to us. You can do that also through support.picnet.net or by going to the Contact Us form at soapboxengage.com, and we will be more than happy to chat with you about our Events app and how it can meet your needs to connect with your constituents and supporters. Thanks so much for joining this webinar. I wish you a great day, however that day shakes out with the larger news swirling around us. And yeah, happy soapboxing.